Hey guys, this is The Three Body Problem by Cixin Liu. Full disclosure, at the time of filming this review, I've already read all three books in this trilogy, and it, as a whole, is one of my new favorites. I read all three back to back, but of course decided to review them separately, as there's quite a bit happening and a lot to cover in each of them. This one in particular is not my favorite of the three, but it did win the Hugo Award last year. At least this translation did, as this was originally published in China several years ago, and it's a great start to a much, much larger story. What this book kicks off is a seriously compelling series of events that encompasses all of humanity's progress and therefore its past, the present circumstances that it's found itself in, the events that led up to those circumstances, and its entire future within our world, within our solar system, within our galaxy, and within our universe. I actually requested the third book from Tor, though the publicist was so nice and sent me all three, while I simultaneously found a great deal on the first two from Book Outlet, so stick around to the end for a chance to win a paperback copy of this for yourself. We begin, quite briefly, with the Cultural Revolution in China, a violent time in the 1960s, which in this context reflects the distaste or downright hatred of what they've termed reactionary studies, reactionary theories. These are seen as a negative effect of scientists working in and funded by capitalist governments. China and its youth-filled Red Guard looked to purge itself of all capitalist ideals and reactionary science. Many teachers, intellectuals, scientists, and researchers, basically anyone that refused to abandon their reactionary and revisionist ways, were prosecuted and subsequently killed by those in line with the movement's ideals. A character called Yi Wenji, at the time quite young, is a witness to the execution of her father, a scientist willing to put what he believed to be truth over his own life, and she's unable to do anything about it. She becomes an astrophysicist herself, and despite her own run-ins with the revolution and distaste towards the government perpetuating it, is brought into a top-secret project called Red Coast, at which she spends many years. It's hinted at that her time there just might directly affect the future of all humanity. We skip ahead to the 21st century and to the perspective of a character called Wang Miao, who is a scientist and a researcher of nanomaterials. He is recruited to his surprise and disinclination to help figure out why many scientists around the world have begun to commit suicide, including Yi Wenji's daughter Yang Dong. Simultaneously, while dealing with this and its implications, he begins to fall prey to some rather odd occurrences. Along with his research, he's a hobby photographer, and after a day of shooting, he finds that every picture he takes is superimposed with a set of numbers. This appears to be a countdown that's running out by the second. In his panic to find out what's happening, he comes to the home of a member of a group called the Frontiers of Science, in which he comes across the URL to a website called Three Body. He visits this website later, and it ends up being a game, which he then becomes completely enthralled with. This is apparently something to be solved, an impossible problem that involves an unstable planetary system and its constant dance with death. Wang Miao rightly believes that there's more to this game than meets the eye, and that somehow all of these things, along with Yi Wenji's story, are connected to one another in some profound way. That's all I want to say plot-wise. I want you to kind of experience it yourself, but this is a novel chocked full of ideas, science, math, and problem solving. We are invited by the author, by the various mysterios within it, and by the three-body game to work out things for ourselves, and at the end we're rewarded with a grand spectacle that's almost as astonishing as it is inconceivable. Cixin Liu has imagined the unimaginable, visualized words to fit big ideas and abstract concepts, and has given us a glimpse into something quite difficult to comprehend. And those are this book's strongest suits, the weaving of various impossibilities proven possible, things that need solving in a setting that's really defined by its specific cultural influence. We'll get to more on the effectiveness of this translation in a minute, but this backdrop is distinct and strongly reflected in the writing, and I really appreciated that a lot. It's a bit of a wall at first, or at least it can be, but the more you get into it, the more the story and its important pieces come through in that distinct cultural voice. Unfortunately, what doesn't quite come through in this one in particular is a sense of character. We're offered a glimmer of hope in Yi Wenji, who's got a lot behind who she is at the beginning, and we get to see her in bits and pieces throughout the book, but she's not present enough to make up for the lack of personality throughout the vast majority. Wang Miao is less of a characterized person with reasons for being who he is and for doing what he does, and more of a quiet lens through which we as readers perceive the important bits and pieces of the story. He's placed in situations and given interests that reflect what the plot needs. I kind of understand this, and it makes sense for how the book ends as to why he's there to serve the plot. I mean, he kind of has to be who he is. But it's still a thing that makes this book a bit more dense than it already is. And it is dense. This might turn some off from it, especially towards the end when things get both intense and downright nuts. But for me personally, I've found that I absolutely love when science fiction explores in as much depth as possible the possibilities that it presents, how whatever's being expressed came to be physically, theoretically, scientifically, within this specific setting that the authors built, because even the tiniest of things can be important to a full understanding of certain concepts, and Cixin Liu does not skimp on the details, nor their specific particular importance to the plot as a whole. There's so much to think about in this and to reflect on, and this is just the beginning. We're at the outer edge of a dense, deep ocean, or forest, if you will, that we've only snuck one foot into with this first one. It's evident that there's much more to come within its sequels. It's got scope, but it's still only scratched the surface, and Ken Liu did a great job of translating this, as far as I can tell, taking upon himself the task of interpreting complex ideas and visuals and giving us surprisingly easy to follow, imaginative, descriptive language that makes this book and its abstractions much more accessible than they may have been. It's technical, but not overtly so, and not flashy, but true to the author, true to his writing, true to the culture, and true to the reader, in that it dazzles and entertains, but also informs and gives insight. Despite any flaws, and perhaps because of its conceptual depth, this is a truly solid work of science fiction that sets the scene for its sequels, which expand on this one's ideas tenfold, then 100-fold. I highly recommend it as a whole. And if you're interested in a copy, be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment below. All those who do so will be entered to win automatically, unless you let me know for whatever reason, like you already own it, that you don't want to be entered. I'll be announcing the winner to this and to some other giveaways I'm going to be doing this month, sometime at the beginning of January. Just look out for a video called December giveaway winners. I'll ship to whoever wins wherever they live. I have had some slight issues with giveaways in this past year, but I'm hoping things go much smoother this time around, and I'll do my best to get everything that I give away properly to the winners. So thank you guys so much for watching. I would love to hear any thoughts you have on this book or this series. If you've read just this book, if you read the first two, if you read the whole thing. The third book just came out a couple months ago, and I'm going to be doing reviews of both of the other two separately within the next week or so. So definitely look forward to those. I am really looking forward to talking more about the series. I enjoyed it very much. It's, like I said, one of my new favorites, and I would love to hear more thoughts and opinions on both this book and the series as a whole from you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you later with more.